Hello. Well, here we are. We've come to the end of my 5 little video clips to get you in the working spirit for each of your lessons. And today's is perhaps trying to gather all the strands together and get an overview of the problem of evil for when you go and write some essay work based on previous exam questions on this topic. I'd like to introduce you to 2 characters, and the work that you're about to do will be based around a comparison of these 2. One is a figure in the Old Testament called Job, and I want you to go and have a look at some pieces from the book of Job, particularly the early chapters, where Job is struck down by God, if you like. God has a little chat with the devil, who says, "Can I take your servant Job, who seems to be a remarkable, upstanding citizen, because I know he has faith in you, and he doesn't seem to be at all wavering in his faith, but that's because you've always treated him well. What if you allowed me to strike him with boils and plagues and kill all his family and take away all his servants and take away his livelihood and his house and all his cattle and all the things that he's relied on? What if you afflicted him with boils and made him sit under the gourd in the noonday sun and suffer? What would happen if we took away all the good things? Wouldn't this man continually curse God as a result of what had happened to him?" It's very interesting. As you read the passage, you'll see that Job actually continues at the end of a long discussion with his friends to honour God. But he reaches an interesting point. He reaches the point as a result of discussion with his 3 friends, so-called Job's comforters. They're not very comforting at all. They actually criticise him for his questioning God in the face of evil. Job does question God, as we do in the face of evil, but he comes to the conclusion that at the end of the day, God is God, and in the face of such extraordinary power, you can simply remain silent. You can't stand on the brink of the lime pits where the people who have been liquidated in the Holocaust are being thrown and try to justify that at the end of the problem of evil, all these arguments, whether they be Augustinian or Irenaean, actually amount to nothing. They are something of an insult in the face of the people who have actually experienced suffering. That all you can do at the end of that is to stand in silence and say, "I have no answers, all I do is trust God." And either you say that or you say, "Well, all I do is distrust God because I don't think God exists." So you come up with one view or you come up with the other. But the message of Job was really all about standing in silence and not trying to justify it, but simply having faith. It's interesting too that in the ideas of the New Testament, again, whether you believe this or not is a matter for you to decide, but the idea behind the Judeo-Christian tradition, particularly the Christian tradition, is that Jesus, in his state of coming down to be a man, and we look at Philippians chapter 2 verses 5 to 11, for example, to look at the way in which Jesus descended from his divine position to become a man, became a servant who was treated badly, and then went to his death, and the worst type of death on a cross. So that in empathising with us, God in the human form of Jesus Christ actually became one of us, empathised ultimately with our condition, died the worst human death that you can die when he didn't have to die it, and then as a result of that was raised back to be with God again. And I suppose in that act of empathy you have one who understands extreme suffering, understands the suffering that human beings go through. That's why for Christians I think Jesus is a very important figure. I mean, it's an absolutely central figure, because in the answer to the question of suffering you have one who stands absolutely in our place and suffers as we do. Okay, not every form of human suffering, but it's still that style of human suffering which is one of the worst types that you can get. So there's Job on the one hand, and on the other hand I want you to compare Job with Ivan Karamazov. Now there's a very famous book by Fyodor Dostoevsky, written in the last century, And Fyodor Dostoevsky writes an amazing epic story about three brothers. It's called The Brothers Karamazov. And in this story you hear about various dealings, it's an epic narrative, various dealings of their lives. And there's one point in this story where Alyosha, the youngest of the three brothers, goes to visit Ivan Karamazov in his cell, in his priest's, not in his priest's cell, in his prison cell. And as he talks with Ivan Karamazov, Karamazov is his elder brother. Ivan's talking about his rejection of God, and he's saying, I cannot accept that the type of God that you believe in, my younger brother, is actually real. That if I'm called upon to believe and have faith in a God who allows, and he refers to some of the atrocities of the day in Russia in that time when the book was written, allows soldiers to throw babies up in the air and catch them on their bayonets, that they do the most horrific things, inhuman things. I cannot believe in a God who would allow that to happen and would not step in. Of course, his younger brother says, well, some of these things have to happen in order to understand the nature of overcoming evil with good. And Ivan Karamazov says, look, there is nothing that can justify that degree of evil. I understand you might want a little bit of evil, in a little bit of suffering, in order to see that some greater good can come about as a result of it, in order to perhaps distinguish suffering from good. But that degree of suffering, nothing can justify. And if that's the kind of God that I am asked to go on a journey with, I am sending back my ticket. I do not want to have any part of it. So there we are. You've got two interesting positions there. You've got Ivan Karamazov rejecting God completely in the face of evil, and Job standing in silence in the face of evil and saying, I simply trust God. And your task today is to go and compare the two and to see what you think as a result of that debate. And there we are. That's the end of my DVDs, or my little video clips for you. You need to complete some work on the sheets, and then when I see you again, which hopefully will be very soon in the next couple of lessons, if not the next lesson, then the lesson after, I will be back with you and I'll take things up from there. Hope you enjoy it.